Life is an act of constant reinvention. That's true for you and for cars. Nissan reimagined the all-new Kicks around you. The Bose Personal Plus sound system with speakers in the headrests keep you in the groove, while the Nissan Safety Shield 360 technologies keep you safe. If Nissan reinvented the Kicks, you can reinvent yourself. Drive the all-new reimagined Nissan Kicks today. Available feature. Bose is a registered trademark of the Bose Corporation. Nissan Safety Shield technologies can't prevent all collisions or warn in all situations. See owner's manual for important safety information.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hello and welcome to mini episode 391 of Real Life Ghost Stories, and I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 8th of August 2024, and story number 1 comes from Vic. I thought about sending in my story to you after hearing about the man in the hat. I used to think this was a story I made up or my overactive imagination along the same lines of my imaginary friend Sam, but now I'm not too sure. My childhood bedroom was in a converted attic in a house in Birmingham in the UK. I loved it, and loved having my own staircase and a window that looked over the neighbourhood. That was until it came to bedtime, and this is because that was when the man in the hat and his friends would visit. Each night I would go to bed and lie there with my eyes partly closed, pretending to be asleep, as I knew the 4 people would visit and stand over me. I would lie so still, pretending to be asleep, and see them appear at my door. There was the man in the tall black hat, the man with the curly hair, and 2 other people who I can't remember what they looked like now. They would stand there looking down at me and discussing me, and then they would drift off. I suppose it did scare me. I've never forgotten it. And they never harmed me, but I always knew I had to lie there and not move and not acknowledge them. I only told my mum about this a couple of years ago and it freaked her out, as she hates anything supernatural, but acknowledges that there are things out there that we can't explain, like the time I woke up to her calling my name. I knew it was my mum and instantly sent her a text message checking on her as she lives 14 hours away. She said she hadn't been able to sleep and had been lying there thinking about my granddad, who had not long passed, and thanked me for checking on her. I think people who have a really strong emotional connection, I think that connection continues over long distances, and I think it manifests in weird ways. Like you hearing your mom calling your name and texting her, and then her being like, actually, I really needed you to text me in that moment. I think those unspoken bonds are more than just emotional. I think there is a literalness to those bonds sometimes. And as for the Hat Man and his friends, again, like I always say, go away, go somewhere else. Do something better with your time than scaring small children. And here's the thing, right? Some people would say, oh, well, you were dreaming or you were in a semi-conscious state, whatever, right? Here's the thing. If you are dreaming and your brain is conjuring up a nightmare situation, something that is going to absolutely terrify you, why do so many people see the Hat Man? Why is the Hat Man the scariest thing our brain can come up with? Similar to the Hag. Why is the Hag the scariest thing our brain could come up with? Even if someone turned around to me and said, scientifically it has been proven that the Hat Man is a figment of people's imaginations and that the Hag that people see in sleep paralysis is a figment of people's imaginations, I would be like, fine, absolutely, but please explain to me why in all of the differences of all of our brains that we all conjure up the same thing. That's the bit that blows my mind. And story number 2 comes from Erin. For my whole life, I've lived in one house in Australia. It really is a normal house, except for the fact that it's not. To start from the very beginning, this house was built by my parents while my mum was pregnant with me. I am the third child of 4. My parents moved in with my older brother and sister only a few months after I had been born. From the beginning, my grandparents on my mum's side had always felt off about this house. As we were the first people to live in the house, no one had any reason to be suspicious of it being haunted. Well, that was wrong. Our house was built on historic bushland. We were one of the first houses to have been built on this plot of land. After having moved into the house, one day my granddad had come over to see how the house was coming along and help with whatever needed helping with, when he heard banging on our fence. He looked at the fence and noticed many Aboriginal ghosts banging at the fence with their spears and throwing stones against the fence before they disappeared. This kept happening for weeks. We grew up as Christians, so my grandparents prayed, but they kept appearing still. My mum had seen them too on a separate occasion. One day while my granddad had come over to help with the paving of the backyard, it happened again. But this time he said, "Please leave. We promise to respect this house and its land. We mean no harm." And after that, they had never been seen since. When I was 4, I had my own first ever paranormal encounter. I still remember clearly to this day. I'm now 22 and still living in the house. That one day my cousins had come over to celebrate someone's birthday. Me being a 4-year-old girl, I had my favourite silver sparkly shoes and my favourite party dress. I remember my cousins and older siblings had been teasing me and managed to get a hold of my shoes and decided they would throw them around to each other so I would have to chase them to get them back. Eventually my brother got hold of one of the shoes and thought it would be so funny to throw it down the side of the house that no one usually goes down, as there were lots of spiders and the aura was just scary. In the backyard there were these wall-mounted outdoor lights that had 2 bulbs facing in opposite directions. To children, you can imagine that they looked like eyes, kind of the same way headlights on a car look like cars' eyes. I remember so clearly all my cousins standing around the corner, looking at the shoe like, "Nah, I'm not getting that." But them being my favourite shoes, I wasn't letting them stay there. I remember one of my cousins pointing at the lights and saying, "Guys, it just moved," as I started to walk to get them. And then there was an argument of, "No, they didn't move, you're just trying to scare her," to which we all decided to just watch and see if it would move again. As we all stood there waiting to see if they would move, you guessed it. It moved so that both light bulbs suddenly faced towards all of us. We all took off sprinting to our parents, who didn't believe us. My dad doesn't believe in anything paranormal. He isn't religious, and all he believes in is that when you're dead, and that's it. When my older sister was 7, she was getting tucked in for bed. My mum wasn't at home as she was at Bible study, so therefore if there were any issues, the go-to parent for the night was my dad. She was starting to drift off to sleep when she heard a skateboard going past her window. So she got up and went to my dad and said, "The skateboard keeps making noises past my window." My dad, wanting to just be done with it, took her out to the backyard and showed her the only skateboard we had was propped up against the wall. My sister then went back to bed and said that she could still hear the skateboard going past her window. My dad took her out again to show her yet again that the skateboard was still against the wall. She went back to bed again, and the same thing happened where she said, "The skateboard is still going, Dad." To which he took her outside to show her that the skateboard was propped up against the wall. Except this time, it wasn't. This time the skateboard was upside down on the trampoline we had. My dad told her to go back inside and go to bed and not talk about it. I don't know what my dad thought of this, as it's hard to make him even talk about the paranormal. But every few months to this day, we will sometimes still hear a skateboard, even though we don't own any anymore. At this point, it's just part of living in the house. When I was about 11, all 3 of my siblings stayed up late as none of us could sleep. We were staying up watching late night TV shows like House Hoarders. I remember I checked my phone and it had hit 3 a.m. on the dot and I started to feel sleepy. I decided to be brave and go to bed on my own, so I said out loud to them, "I'm tired, I'm going to bed." So I walked off on my own and settled into bed, and then my sister messaged me, "The devil is at the end of your bed." which of course this freaked me out, but I knew she was trying to scare me, so I yelled out, "That didn't scare me," and tried to fall asleep. Next thing you know, the pillows that were placed at the end of my bed started flying from one side of the room to the next, so I was paralysed in fear and just started sobbing. My siblings came into the room and turned the lights on to see what was going on, and found me just sat there crying about how the pillows went flying across the room. When I was 12, I had 2 paranormal encounters happen to me. Both of these are encounters I will never be able to forget, as they truly traumatised me. My room was being done up and painted, so I was having to sleep in my older sister's bed with her one night, as she had a big double bed that we could share. I'd started drifting off to sleep when I opened my eyes and saw a giant blue transparent man standing over both my sister and I, watching us and smiling. Being raised as a Christian, my child brain was thinking, this is an angel and I'm not supposed to be seeing this. I then assumed my sister must have been thinking the exact same thing, as she then reached over to me and pushed my head to where I wasn't facing it anymore. I fell asleep thinking, I have to tell my mum I saw an angel when I wake up. This was not what happened according to my sister. When I woke up in the morning, my sister was already gone from the bed, so I hadn't been able to talk to her about it yet. We were getting ready to go to church and my mum was doing my hair, so I was sat in between her legs and she was braiding my hair. I casually said to her, "I saw an angel last night," when my sister came running into the room yelling, "What did you see? What did you see?" Then the fear started settling into me. According to her, that thing had traumatised her all night and she wasn't able to sleep. She had tried kicking me and yelling at me to wake up, but I wasn't waking up. She always said, "I never ever pushed your face towards the wall. I was trying to wake you up all night." What she saw was entirely different to what I saw. She did see a giant blue transparent man, but not in the way that I saw it. She said it wasn't a smile that he had, but it was stitches all the way up its mouth in the shape of a smile. It had extremely long dreadlocks and a giant patch over its eye. She said it got down on its knees and went face to face with her. She hid under the covers and started yelling for our mum and dad, who were only in the next room to us, so they definitely would have heard. Except they swear the next morning they didn't hear anything. My sister said it was mimicking our parents' voices when she was yelling for them. Did you hear that? I thought I heard something, but it must have been nothing. Every time she pulled the blanket down to check if it was gone, it was still there. Every time she blinked, she said she saw bloody images of the blue transparent thing. Eventually, when the sun started to rise, it had left. We both drew pictures of what we saw, which was very similar, apart from the smile. And my mum has a picture of them still somewhere, but for the life of me, I cannot find them. If I ever do, I will email them in. The other thing that had happened when I was 12. I was home alone, having been sick from school one day. My mum was dropping my other siblings off to school when I heard this shuttling along the floor and walls of the hallway outside of the room I was in. Both of our cats were in the room with me and perched up when they heard it too. One of the cats went out to investigate and started hissing and ran off. The other one was still cuddled up with me but wasn't wanting to go and check. I swear the next thing that happened, I saw a lizard man standing halfway between the door with a trident type of thing in its hands looking at me, and my cat started growling and hissing and took off in a bolt. I hid under the bed covers and got onto the phone with my mum, who was just around the corner from the house anyway, but I was sobbing and terrified to even come out of the room after that. So going back to the beginning of this story, like if you've got Aboriginal people who have lived on that land for, centuries, and it's important land to the Aboriginal people, and then suddenly people are building houses on that land, of course those people are going to be like, excuse me, this is our land, like, go away. But I guess the key is, like you said, it's about respect, isn't it? It's about being like, hey, we're respecting the house, we're respecting the land, we don't mean any harm. But it is amazing that multiple people saw this apparition vision of Aboriginal people banging at the fence and being like, absolutely not. And I know that you're probably sick of hearing this as an Australian person, but when Australian people mention spiders, where you're like, that's the part of the house where there's usually lots of spiders, I'm immediately thinking of like giant spiders that could carry off a 4-year-old child, into their lair under the ground. I have seen the videos of the size of spiders in Australia. I've seen the videos. And to be really frank, I'm not particularly scared of spiders. I mean, I don't enjoy them, but I'm not freaked by them to the degree that some people are. But I would gladly take a ghost that moved its headlight eyes to look at me. I would gladly take a ghost over giant Australian spiders any day. And it does sound like between the kind of headlight eyes, I know they weren't headlights, but you know what I mean, the garden light eyes and the skateboard, it sounds like something on the land was just messing with you guys. Like, it doesn't sound like it was particularly malevolent. It doesn't sound like it was particularly bad or, you know, was trying to do anything bad. But those things are strange. Like those inanimate objects on your property that are moving to be disruptive. It sounds like something on the land was like, just going to remind you that this is our land. And in regards to your sister saying that, you know, the devil's at the end of your bed, which is, being a younger sibling is hard work, right? I know that from experience. It is hard work. It's amazing that that coincidence happened, you know, because I don't actually think the devil was at the end of your bed. I think he would have better things to do. But the pillows flying around from one side of the room to the other, like, what a coincidence. And I think it's really interesting that you and your sister saw the same thing, but with that one fundamental difference of you saw a smiling man and interpreted that as an angel, and she saw a man with like stitches for his mouth that traumatized her for the night. And I wonder if it was a case of two different interpretations of the same thing. So, you know, when you wake up and you wake up out of a really deep sleep and you don't know what the heck is going on, you don't know where you are, you don't know what planet you're on. I wonder, did you both wake up from that state and your sister interpreted it as, you know, it having stitches for its mouth? Maybe that is what it actually looked like. But when you woke up, you interpreted it as a really nice smile, and therefore you were like, oh, that's nice. I can't wait to tell mum in the morning about the angel that I saw. But blue transparent ghost with dreadlocks and an eye patch, it's reminiscent of pirate ghosts for me. Or, you know, the ghosts in Lord of the Rings, that Aragorn goes into the cave to like find them and get them to fight in the battle. That's what it reminds me of. And finally, if it wasn't for the cats, right? If it wasn't for the cats responding to this thing, I would say, you know, you were sick in bed. Maybe it was a fever. And maybe like because of that fever, you were seeing things. But the fact that the cats reacted to this thing. And I've just finished watching the TV show Chaos, which is all about the Greek myths. So what I can think of, but it was clearly Poseidon. I don't know why Poseidon would be, you know, showing up at a 12-year-old girl's bedroom when she's sick at home from school. But in all seriousness, I don't have anything to add to this because I don't know what it could be.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
Hey, true crime fans. Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month slows. Full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey there. Looking to level up your shopping experience? Let me introduce you to Amazon Live. If you haven't heard, it's a shoppable video experience where influencers and creators showcase the latest must-haves all while you shop in real time. And for those who love some celeb gossip, reality stars like Kyle Richards, Lala Kent, and friend of the pod, Paige DeSorbo. On her new show, In Bed with Paige DeSorbo, Paige invites top-tier guests to cozy up in her fluffy bed where they spill secrets, share nighttime routines, and even whip up midnight snacks. Stream and shop new episodes of her series In Bed with Paige DeSorbo every Tuesday at 7 p.m. ET by going to amazon.com/live/Paige_DeSorbo. Or you can watch Amazon Live's new live TV channel on Freevee or Prime Video under the DIY section and shop along on your phone.
And story number 3 comes from Darren. I grew up in coastal North Carolina in the US. The Atlantic Ocean is still treacherous along this area, although navigation is now much safer than previous centuries. So dangerous was navigating these waters that the Outer Banks of North Carolina were referred to as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. This event occurred near the town of Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, just south of the Outer Banks. The year was 1977 and it was a particularly cold winter. I was dating my high school girlfriend, Lou. It was the week of Thanksgiving, as I recall, and after having dinner with her family, we decided to drive down to the beach and take a walk. Even though it was a cold evening, with wind blowing right in off the ocean, the idea of a snuggle and a snog was quite appealing. All bundled in warm coats, we walked hand in hand to the beach access, which was a wooden boardwalk over the sand dune. There were benches on either side of the boardwalk. However, due to the cold wind, no one was making use of the benches. After all, who other than 2 teenagers would be out on a night like that night? We crossed over the dune and turned north to walk along the sand. The moon was not quite full, but the beach was well lit and completely deserted. After several minutes, even with my attempts to keep her warm, she decided we should turn back. In doing so, we turned into the wind and began walking back to the boardwalk. It was then that we first heard it. We could distinctly hear the sound of a baby crying, that wail that only an infant can produce. We talked about the fact that it was not wise to have a baby out in that wind. As we approached the boardwalk, the sound was much louder. In the light of the moon, we could see a figure sitting on one of the benches, feet drawn up almost in a seated, fetal position. We climbed the steps and could tell the crying was definitely coming from that figure. So, was it someone holding a baby? As we began to pass the figure, Lou had moved to the far side, away from them. She had a strong grip on my hand, almost tugging me along. As we were directly beside the figure, we could tell it was clothed in a hooded jacket or coat, head down and rocking back and forth. And that crying. It was then that the figure turned to face us. I would say to look directly at us, but there was no face. Under the hood, where the face should have been, it was just a swirling mass of iridescent colour. And then the crying continued. Lou was not going to have any of that. She practically snatched me off my feet. I called out, "Are you okay?" with the only reply being the crying sound. Lou was now dragging me down the steps towards the nearest restaurant. Although she was nearly frantic, I must admit, I was not afraid, but very curious. She was saying that we had to call the police department or someone to warn them of that person. What was I to tell anyone? That there was something on the boardwalk that looked like a human but was definitely not? We did walk into the restaurant and I told a staff member that they may want to have someone go and check out the boardwalk, that someone might need help. By that time, Lou was very ready to go back home. We made the short drive and she was visibly shaking, so we called it a night. We dated for the remainder of the school year and never spoke of the incident. She simply was not having any of that event. I recently messaged her and asked her if she remembered that night, those 47 years ago. She did remember it, but preferred not to speak of it. What was on the beach that night? Who knows? Someone speculated that in the light of all those shipwrecks and perished souls, it could have been a parent who had lost a child. This story is wild. Like, it really gave me the heebie-jeebies. I had to go away and think about it and then come back to it because I don't... Oh, gosh, everything about it is giving me the heebie-jeebies. So firstly, clearly the area is known for shipwrecks, being called the graveyard of the Atlantic, right? So that's already an area that's charged with lots of paranormal, terrifying, scary energy. And you know what I think has terrified me the most about this story is the sound of the baby crying. Because obviously you're walking along the beach, you hear a baby crying, you're like, oh, you know, baby's crying, it's pretty cold wind to be out with a baby. And then you realise that the sound of the baby crying is coming from this hooded, cloaked figure that is sitting with its feet up on this bench, rocking back and forth. Like they're clearly not holding a baby, so they are making that sound. And I just want you to think for a minute about how terrifying that would be to see an adult sitting, rocking back and forth, making a sound like a baby crying. And then they look up and it's a swirling mass of iridescent colour instead of a face. We've had people who have looked up and it's like, you know, there's just a dark shadow under the hood. There's no face or there's facial features missing. I don't think we've ever had a swirling iridescent mass underneath the hood. What is that? Like, is this just energy? Is this entity just a mass of energy of all the lives that have been lost before? Or, you know, like you said, is this somebody who lost a parent, who lost a child and is reliving the wails of that child in the afterlife? That would ruin my day. Okay, seeing that would ruin my day, and I can absolutely understand why your girlfriend was like, I don't want to talk about that, thank you. Oh, what a great story. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Vic, Erin and Darren for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from the 8th of August 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.